It began quietly, without the usual fanfare that surrounds a Ferrari announcement. No glossy press release, no overproduced social media video. Just a private internal meeting inside the Maranello technical office, where senior engineers laid out the first confirmed direction for Ferrari's 2026 Formula One car. And somewhere in that discussion, a fundamental shift took place. The kind of decision that doesn't just tweak a front wing or re-profile a suspension arm, but rewrites the DNA of a racing team. For the first time since Lewis Hamilton walked through those famous red doors, Ferrari's design philosophy will tilt decisively toward his way of driving. Not as a token gesture, not as a "we'll try a few things your way," but as a central pillar of the new car's concept. Think about the significance. This is a team that has historically been slow, sometimes stubborn, to pivot away from what it knows, especially when one of its drivers, Charles Leclerc, has been the reference point for car development for over half a decade. But 2025 has forced a reckoning. A season that began with cautious optimism has spiraled into underwhelming results, strategic dead ends, and a growing realization that the SF25 simply doesn't give Hamilton the platform he needs. And with the sweeping regulation changes of 2026 looming, smaller cars, new aero targets, fresh power unit rules, Ferrari has decided it cannot afford to enter that new era with a car tailored to the wrong strengths. The stakes could not be higher. If they get this right, 2026 might be Hamilton's last, and best shot at an 8th World Championship. If they get it wrong, it risks cementing his Ferrari chapter as a footnote rather than a triumph. And the questions are already swirling. How much of Hamilton's Mercedes-honed expertise will Ferrari truly integrate? Will Leclerc adapt to a car born from his teammates' input, or will the Scuderia find itself managing a politically delicate split in driving styles? And perhaps the most intriguing, can Hamilton's fingerprints on the 2026 design break a title drought that has haunted Maranello since 2007? Because, make no mistake, this isn't just another development cycle. This is the moment where Ferrari either learns to listen to the most successful driver of the modern era, or repeats the same old mistakes in a brand new car. To understand why this decision matters so much, you have to rewind to the start of 2025. Ferrari's winter testing pace was promising. Not dominant, but within striking distance of McLaren, and close enough to keep Red Bull honest. Analysts pointed to a development curve that, if sustained, could finally close the gap. But by mid-season, that curve had flatlined. Upgrades weren't sticking. New parts produced marginal gains in qualifying, only to fade over long runs. Tyre degradation remained a stubborn weakness, and Hamilton's comfort level in the SF25 never improved. By the summer break, the team had slipped behind McLaren in the constructors' standings and was under real threat from Mercedes in points. Ferrari has been here before. In 2016, Mercedes faced a similar decision with major regulation changes on the horizon for 2017. They split resources carefully, enough to win the title in the current year while laying the foundation for the next. It worked. But Ferrari's history is littered with the opposite, sacrificing future competitiveness to chase short-term glory, or shifting focus too early and losing momentum entirely. The decision to pivot hard toward 2026 mid-season carries both the weight of opportunity and the risk of repeating those past mistakes. The key difference this time is Hamilton. Unlike Leclerc, whose entire Formula One career has been spent inside Ferrari's orbit, Hamilton arrives with the memory and the technical understanding of how a championship-winning team evolves. He's lived through regulation resets before, 2009 at McLaren, 2014 at Mercedes, 2022's ground effect revolution. Each time, he adapted his driving and influenced the car's concept to suit what he needed over a season, not just a single lap. That's why 2026 is so much more than a new chassis. It's a test of whether Ferrari can translate that experience into a car capable of living at the sharp end every weekend, across every circuit profile. The resources are finite, the regulation window is short, and the team that maximizes its head start now could define the next era of Formula One, while the one that misjudges the balance will spend years chasing shadows. When people talk about building a car around a driver, it can sound abstract, a marketing phrase rather than an engineering blueprint. But in Formula One, tailoring a car to a driver's strengths is a highly specific, deeply technical process. And with Hamilton, those strengths and demands are well documented. He thrives on a front end that feels surgically precise, allowing him to brake late, rotate the car confidently, and commit early to throttle without destabilizing the rear. He's also a master at balancing tyre life over a stint, but that advantage disappears if the car forces him to fight instability through long corners or over curbs. Ferrari's SF25, by contrast, has been designed around Leclerc's preference for an incredibly sharp turn-in, even at the expense of rear stability. For Charles, that's not a problem. He adapts his driving mid-corner to catch the rear and keep momentum. But for Hamilton, whose style depends on building confidence lap after lap, that unpredictability costs more than just tenths on the stopwatch. It disrupts his rhythm, forces compromises in setup, and limits the range of conditions in which he can extract the car's full potential. This is where Loic Serra's arrival becomes critical. As the former head of vehicle dynamics at Mercedes, Serra worked with Hamilton through multiple title-winning campaigns, helping refine chassis balance to suit both his style and the team's strategic needs. His understanding of how Hamilton translates feedback into measurable engineering targets is a rare advantage, one Ferrari simply hasn't had before. And with the 2026 regulations offering a clean slate, Serra can influence the very architecture of the car. Suspension geometry, weight distribution, aero platform stability, even cockpit ergonomics. The big change Ferrari is considering isn't just to sharpen the front end or soften the rear, it's to widen the operating window, the range of balance and grip levels in which the car can be competitive. That matters because the 2026 cars, with reduced downforce and altered power unit characteristics, will demand adaptability across circuits more than ever. A car with a narrow sweet spot might dominate on certain tracks, but vanish in competitiveness on others. A Hamilton-influenced Ferrari, if done right, could deliver consistency, the single most valuable currency in a championship fight. And for a driver who's won titles by mastering adaptability, that might be the most potent weapon Ferrari can give him. Designing a Formula One car is never just an engineering problem, it's a political one. And at Ferrari, those politics are magnified by history, expectation, and the weight of two star drivers whose needs aren't perfectly aligned. Charles Leclerc has been the reference point for Maranello's development program since 2019. The engineers know his style, his preferred setup parameters, and the way he approaches a weekend. For years, the car has been an extension of his feedback loop, refined through thousands of simulator runs and hundreds of race weekends. That continuity is valuable. It creates efficiency, but it can also create a kind of institutional inertia, a reluctance to deviate too far from the known path. Hamilton disrupts that comfort zone. His arrival brings not just a new perspective, but a proven methodology that has won championships under very different technical regimes. The strategic challenge for Ferrari is finding a way to incorporate that methodology without eroding Leclerc's strengths. Go too far toward Hamilton's style, and you risk leaving Leclerc with a car he has to relearn from scratch, potentially destabilizing his performance. Lean too heavily on Leclerc's preferences, and Hamilton's influence becomes symbolic rather than structural, wasting the unique asset they've signed. Other teams have walked this line with varying success. Red Bull, for instance, has unapologetically built its cars around Verstappen's style, leaving Perez to adapt. McLaren, by contrast, has pursued a more balanced approach, ensuring that both Norris and Piastri can exploit the car's potential, even if it means sacrificing absolute optimization for one. Ferrari's situation is more delicate. Both drivers expect to fight for wins. Both are central to the team's brand identity. And both have legitimate claims to shape the 2026 car. The path Ferrari chooses over the next 12 months will define more than just lap times. It will determine whether Hamilton and Leclerc become a complementary force pushing each other forward, or two parallel development streams competing for control of Maranello's future. From the outside, Hamilton's first season in red was always going to be a spectacle. The most decorated driver of the modern era, joining the most iconic team in Formula One. But beneath the surface, the reality has been far more turbulent. In the opening rounds of 2025, there were flashes of brilliance, aggressive overtakes, qualifying laps that wrung every last tenth from a car that didn't want to comply. Yet, as the season wore on, the frustration began to seep through. Post-session debriefs became longer, body language more guarded, and media soundbites less diplomatic. Then came Hungary. Out in Q2, Leclerc on pole. The kind of contrast that invites uncomfortable questions. In the pen interviews, Hamilton called himself useless, a comment that many took at face value as pure self-criticism. But for those who have watched him over the years, there was a subtext. Hamilton knows how narratives form in the paddock. He understands that vulnerability, shown at the right moment, can reframe the conversation. By calling himself useless, he wasn't conceding defeat. He was highlighting almost sarcastically the gap between his talent and the car's cooperation. a subtle nudge to Ferrari that the problem wasn't just him adapting. It's a tactic he's used before. At Mercedes, moments of public self-doubt often coincided with internal pushes for change, for a new upgrade direction, a reset in setup philosophy, or a reallocation of resources. In Maranello, the stakes are higher. This is not just about points on the board. It's about establishing his voice as equal, if not central, in shaping the team's future. Leclerc's comfort with the SF25 makes that push more complex. To many inside Ferrari, he is the known quantity, fast, committed, and aligned with the car's DNA. But Hamilton's career has been built on bending machinery to his will, even when it resists. The emotional undercurrent here isn't just frustration. It's the tension between two different visions of what a Ferrari should be. One is continuity, the other is reinvention. The question is whether Maranello can navigate that tension without fracturing. Because if Hamilton feels sidelined in the development process now, 2026's Hamilton car might exist more in headlines than in the wind tunnel. And if that happens, the dream pairing of driver and team could unravel before it ever hits full stride. Championships aren't just won on raw speed, they're won on timing. And in 2026, the timing window will be brutally narrow. Under the new regulations, the development race in the opening 4 to 6 rounds will likely decide the title fight's trajectory. Once the budget cap locks in and aerodynamic testing restrictions bite, recovering a major performance deficit mid-season will be close to impossible. That means Ferrari's Hamilton car has to land within striking distance immediately, not by round 8, not after the summer break, straight out of the box. Run the numbers and the picture gets sharper. In a standard 24-race calendar, dropping even half a second per lap to a front-running package can mean hemorrhaging 10 to 12 points per weekend. Over the first 5 races, that's a 50-60 point hole, more than enough to force a driver into a mathematical miracle scenario by mid-season. Hamilton knows this. It's why he keeps stressing consistency over outright qualifying glory. His 7 titles weren't built solely on pole positions. They were built on converting bad weekends into damage limitation and turning average Sundays into podiums. If Ferrari nails the baseline car for 2026, the points model changes. Assume an average finishing delta of +2 positions per race over 24 rounds. That's roughly a 96-point swing compared to their 2025 average, enough to take a title fight to Abu Dhabi against any rival operating at 2023-2024 Red Bull levels of dominance. But there's a catch: early development efficiency. Every simulation lap, every wind tunnel run, and every CFD model completed in the next 12 months carries exponentially more value because the 2026 regulations represent a full reset. For Hamilton, this isn't just about influencing the car's feel, it's about ensuring Ferrari hits that performance curve in round 1, not round 10. Because if they miss that window, the mathematics of modern F1 say the title dream will evaporate before the European leg even begins. The Formula One paddock never operates in isolation. The moment word filters through that Ferrari's 2026 concept is being shaped with Hamilton's fingerprints all over it, the competitive machinery at Mercedes, McLaren and Red Bull will shift into countermeasure mode. Rival teams will study every pre-season photo, every spy shot from Fiorano, and every sector split from the first shakedown run, not just for performance clues, but for Hamilton's influence. Mercedes, in particular, will be watching with more than casual interest. Toto Wolff knows Hamilton's feedback patterns as well as anyone, and if those traits become embedded in Ferrari's car, Brackley's engineers will already be running anti-Hamilton simulations to understand where that setup philosophy might be vulnerable. Expect them to focus on track types and corner profiles where Hamilton has historically been forced into compromises, and develop race strategies that amplify those weaknesses. McLaren's approach will be different. Andrea Stella has built a culture around flexibility, tailoring the car to both Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri without locking into a single driving style. If Ferrari's 2026 package leans too heavily into Hamilton's preferences, McLaren will likely double down on producing a chassis with the widest possible operating window, aiming to exploit weekends where Ferrari can't quite balance both Hamilton's and Leclerc's needs. And then there's Red Bull. Christian Horner and Adrian Newey have made an art form out of designing cars around one driver, Verstappen, with ruthless efficiency. If Ferrari starts showing early signs of a championship-level package, Red Bull won't hesitate to bring forward planned upgrades, even at the expense of their long-term development path, to crush momentum before it builds. This is the political reality Hamilton is stepping into. The moment Ferrari commits to his vision, the rest of the grid will begin plotting to dismantle it. Which means 2026 won't just be a fight between Hamilton and the stopwatch. It'll be a season-long chess match against every technical director and strategist in the pit lane. If Ferrari gets 2026 right, the ripple effects could extend far beyond a single season. A Hamilton-led development success wouldn't just end a title drought, it would reset the perception of what modern Ferrari stands for. For 2 decades, the Scuderia's narrative has oscillated between flashes of brilliance and long stretches of almost. A championship under Hamilton, particularly in the first year of a new regulation cycle, would signal that Maranello can still lead from the front, not just follow the curve. From a technical standpoint, it could also establish a new internal culture. Hamilton's influence on Mercedes wasn't limited to car feedback. It was about demanding precision in every operational detail, from pit stop execution to mid-race strategy calls. If that mentality embeds itself in Ferrari's race day operations, the benefits could carry through the entire regulation era. A driver-engineer feedback loop that's both trusted and acted upon can shave off development delays that have historically cost Ferrari entire seasons. For Hamilton's legacy, the stakes are even higher. An 8th title in red wouldn't just break the all-time record. It would do so with the team that has defined Formula One's mythos. It would place him in the rare company of drivers who have won championships with multiple constructors under radically different rule sets, a feat achieved by legends like Juan Manuel Fangio. Even without a title, transforming Ferrari into a consistent, credible threat again would cement his reputation as not just a driver of supreme talent, but as a catalyst capable of reshaping a team's competitive DNA. The inverse is equally true. If Ferrari's 2026 gamble falters, the narrative could swing sharply. That even Hamilton's genius couldn't crack Maranello's structural issues. That the problem runs deeper than any driver's input. And in a sport where legacy is as much about timing as it is about talent, that would be a bitter footnote to carry. Which is why, as the countdown to 2026 ticks away, the significance of this development pivot grows heavier with every day. For Ferrari, for Hamilton, and for the shape of the next Formula One era. Formula One is a sport of fine margins between grip and slip, bravery and overreach, evolution and extinction. Ferrari's decision to hand Lewis Hamilton the keys to their 2026 concept is not a tweak, it's a declaration. They are betting that the most successful driver of the modern era, with 7 world titles and nearly 2 decades of top-tier experience, can guide them through a regulation reset and back to the summit of the sport. It is, in every sense, a high-wire act. Because the truth is, this isn't just about whether Hamilton adapts to Ferrari. It's about whether Ferrari can adapt to Hamilton. That means not just listening to his feedback in design meetings, but embedding it in the DNA of the car before the first carbon mold is laid. It means rethinking the processes that have historically slowed their reaction time. It means we're building a car with the balance, the predictability, and the adaptability to survive an entire season's worth of variables, from the short straights of Monaco to the high-speed sweeps of Suzuka. In a year's time, the first pre-season shakedown laps in Bahrain will tell us if that gamble has paid off. Every camera will be trained on Hamilton's first braking zone, on how the car changes direction, on his first debrief back in the garage. Is there that subtle nod to the engineer that says, yes, this is what I wanted? Or does the body language hint at another season of compromises? The stakes for Charles Leclerc are no less significant. Sharing a garage with Hamilton in a car designed to suit him will be the ultimate test of adaptability. If Leclerc thrives in it, Ferrari could have the most balanced driver pairing on the grid. If he struggles, Maranello may find itself back in the political turbulence it has worked so hard to avoid. One way or another, 2026 is shaping up to be more than just another season. It's the collision point between legacy and opportunity, between a team's search for redemption and a driver's pursuit of history. And for the first time in years, the question isn't whether Ferrari will fight for wins, it's whether they'll finally have the courage and the car to fight for it all.